Welcome back. Happy New Year. Thank you for your patience. I take care of special needs dogs, and December's usually very busy, but those special needs dogs are back home with their owners now, and I can now post more regularly. With that said, let's jump right in. I want to talk about a video that was posted yesterday or the day before by a creator named Get a Clue, and I'm going to link to the video in my description. Now, in this video, he's talking about a conversation he had with someone he calls a trusted source. And this trusted source told him that they had been talking with Kaylee's dad, Steve G, and that Steve had told them that he had spoken to one of the grand jury members, and that the grand jury member told them that the prosecution asserted that Xana picked up her DoorDash order, brought it to the kitchen, and noticed that the sliding door was open. Now, Get a Clue's argument is, how could she have picked up the order and noticed that the door was open at that point when, on the Linda Lane footage, suspect vehicle 1 is seen driving around at 4:07 a.m. Well, let's remember, in the PCA, it says that the order was received approximately. That could be 4:10, that could be 4, we don't know. We don't know what the time was, right? They say approximately for a reason, and I'm gonna give you a good example, or one good example of why they use such vague terminology. Listen to this clip, watch this clip. It's of the Linda Lane footage, and pay attention to the timestamp. Now, in this timestamp, you hear a bell chime at 4:31 a.m. and some seconds, almost 2 minutes after the half hour. Now, bells typically ring on the hour or the half hour. This one rang on the half hour. We see in the footage, if you go back and you watch that footage, it shows suspect vehicle 1 starting to park around 4:07. So either the bell is 2 minutes behind, 2 minutes late, or the timestamp on the Linda Lane footage is 2 minutes ahead. This is why they say approximately, because they have to take into account the different timestamps. You know, someone's watch might be wrong or different, or someone's eyewitness account. You know, 4:10 and 4:15 might not sound like a big difference, but in cases like this, it could be because of the short window of time. So we don't know when the delivery was made. What we do know, if this is true, if the prosecution did assert that Xana went and got her delivery and brought it to the kitchen, that the delivery came to the front door, because the kitchen is right next to the sliding door. She wouldn't bring it to the kitchen, and it wouldn't matter how would she see the door open? The door would be open because she opened it. So if this is true, the delivery was made to the front, and she went downstairs. And I think it's very possible that when she went downstairs, that's when he came in. Because if that footage is 2 minutes ahead, which I think it is, he could have parked around 4:05 in that lot right behind the house. It would have been taken him maybe 30 seconds to get into the house. And I do agree that when she came up and she went to the kitchen, I do agree that she could have noticed that the door was open. And because of the proximity of the kitchen and Dylan's bedroom, I think Dylan could have heard Xana say, "Someone's here." So I do think it's totally possible that what the prosecution asserted is correct. I think he parked at 4:05. I think he got in the house around 4:07. That's when Xana's order came. She went downstairs and came back upstairs. Because remember, she's still alive at 4:12. That's what the last activity, or TikTok, I think, on her phone. So that time frame makes sense. Delivered around 4:07, still alive around 4:12. He gets in there around 4:07. That makes sense. So I disagree with Get a Clue that this somehow means that the current person in jail, that he's innocent, or that the case should be thrown out. I have those messages between Steve and his internet friend, the ones that were used in the Howard Bloom article. And he says in these messages that he was introduced to a grand jury member by an author. And he did reveal some of the stuff that the grand jury member told him. He doesn't mention anything about the door being open. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but he doesn't mention anything about it. But it does appear as though Steve G spoke to a grand jury member, and that he did get a lot of information. So I believe the trusted source. I believe Clue's source. But I think until we know the exact time frame of everything, we can't say for sure that there's no way the current suspect could have committed the crime. What I will say is, remember, they spoke to the DoorDash driver. They're going to have timestamps for everything. There's going to be a very long paper trail of when they got to the house. And they're going to have an exact timestamp, because we all know if you get DoorDash, you get a text, you get an email, whatever. You get some sort of notification that it's been delivered. So they're going to be able to know to the minute when that arrived. And if that DoorDash clashed with what if they were going to lie, that DoorDash information would clash with any lie that they might put out there. So it sounds like that's pretty accurate, that they know exactly when the DoorDash driver showed up, and that they've probably seen all that footage, and they know this isn't going to clash. So no one's going to pick it apart. What concerns me is, because I think the DoorDash driver arrived at exactly the moment he was coming into the house, I do think that that's what's fueling a lot of people believing that the suspect ordered the DoorDash. I'm going to play a clip from you from a podcast called The King Road Killings, and it's an interview with one of Xana's friends.
They were sophomores in high school. At around 4 a.m., Xana got a food delivery from DoorDash. Friends Katie and Ava say the rundown of that night, those late hours, food deliveries, it all checks out.
And then to go home, to get home late, it's pretty normal.
Typical.
Yeah. To order food at 4 a.m, is that like a Xana move?
That's the Xana move. That's a Xana move. She was constantly door dashing. Ungodly hours of the night. That was her.
Now, she says it was totally normal for Xana to order DoorDash at quote-unquote ungodly hours. So I don't think anybody but Xana put that order in. I don't think it was put in by the suspect. I think Xana placed the order. But the one positive might be that this DoorDash driver has some information. I happen to think that the DoorDash driver is the informant. And in these messages that Steve exchanges with his internet friend, he does say, quote unquote, he just didn't think he'd get caught. So I get the impression they can place him at the house, or that somebody saw him there. And I think that somebody is the DoorDash driver, which would explain why there's been like no talk of him anywhere, or her. It could be a him or a her. They weren't added to the cleared list. You Google them. If you Google this, DoorDash driver cleared, you can't find anything, with the exception of one article. I think it's from the Idaho Statesman. I think there's a reason why this person has been downplayed so much, and I think it's to prevent them from being under too much scrutiny and being scared off from testifying. Who do you think is the informant in this case? Like I said, I happen to think it's the DoorDash driver. I know a lot of people think the DoorDash driver is involved. I don't happen to believe that. I know a lot of people think that the suspect is the person who put in the DoorDash order. I don't believe that either. But I want to hear if you think he did, and if so, why. So tell me who you think the informant is, and tell me if you think he placed the order and why. Leave it in the comments.